You are so beautiful. They all want to talk.
East London. Why is East London quiet?
Nali coming to akaritse chu asinqamanga.
(2:00), let me say that each time a speaker comes, thank you very much, honorable members. We have to go through the drill on every mini plenary, the drill that we all know, but I have to repeat it so that we don't used to it. Honorable members, before we proceed, I would like to remind you that the virtual mini plenary is deemed to be in the precinct of Parliament and constitute a meeting of the National Assembly for debating purposes only. In addition to the rules of the virtual sittings, the rules of the National Assembly, including the rules of debate, shall apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Assembly. Members should equally note that anything said in the virtual platform is deemed to have been said to the House and may be ruled upon. All members who have logged in shall be considered to be present and are requested to mute their microphone and only unmute when recognized to speak. This is because the mics are very sensitive and will pick up noise which might disturb the attention of other members. When requesting to speak, please unmute your microphone and connect your video. And please, let's all now check that our microphones are off. Members may make use of the icons on the bar at the bottom of their screens, which has an option that allows the member to put up his or her hand to points of order. The Secretariat will assist in alerting the chairperson of members requesting to speak. When using the virtual system, members are urged to refrain or desist from unnecessary points of order or interjections. Honorable members, we shall now proceed to the order, which is a debate on vote 17, Higher Education and Training Appropriation Bill. And I will now invite and recognize the Honorable, the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Dr. Nzimande. The platform is yours.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson, our Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Mr. Bhuti Manamela, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Ms. Nompendulo Mkhatshwa, and members of the Portfolio Committee, our Director General of the Department of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Nkosinathi Sishi, Chairpersons, Vice Chancellors, Principals and CEOs of all our post-school education and training institutions, my special advisors, all stakeholders of our post-school education and training sector, honorable members. This marks our fourth budget statement for the Department of Higher Education and Training since the commencement of the sixth administration. Our vision remains that of providing education and training system for improved economic patterns. In support of this vision, we are steadfast to provide strategic leadership through the development of appropriate transformation strategies, effective oversight, monitoring and evaluation, teaching and learning, as well as funding our post-school education and training institutions and entities, PSET in short. We will continue to implement the white paper for the PSET, which provides our policy priorities and the national plan for post-school education and training, which serves as an instrument central to the achievement of our vision and goals. We will also continue to enhance our internal capacity as a department by advertising and filling critical posts. I'm pleased to say that since 2020, 411 vacant posts were advertised and 201 of these posts were finalized, with 210 still to be finalized in the current financial year. The National Skills Authority also, I'm very pleased to say, will conduct skills audit pilots in 5 districts of our country to ensure that government directs its skills training and resources in areas where they are needed most. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, in managing the COVID-19 pandemic, our sector introduced intervention to assist us to conclude the 2021 academic year and begin the 2022 academic year on time. However, I am proud that our system remained resilient despite the numerous challenges of funding constraints, COVID-19 restrictions, and new forms of teaching and learning. We are, however, concerned about the growth trajectory of our PSET system, which is university-centric or university-centered. The internal composition of the post-school education and training funding system and its ratios relative to each other requires careful forward management to ensure a balanced growth trajectory first, in order to ensure that the TVET component sector, followed by the community education and training sectors, grow faster, and secondly, to enable subsidy and infrastructure funding that can support rapid student enrollment growth. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, 85% of the budget that I'm presenting today goes to universities. Yet universities only cater for about 6% of our total youth population. This will have to be addressed going forward. The overall total enrollments within the public university sector have been projected to be 1.1 million for the 2022 academic year, just over. A considerable portion of the spaces within scarce skills areas require a national senior certificate mathematics mark of at least 60%. As a result, through my Department of Science and Innovation, we have developed collaboration with provincial departments of education to support math, science, and technology education. This intervention will ensure that we increase the number of learners passing grade 12 in math, science, and technology education. To ensure that the entire public university system is developed, implementation of the University Capacity Development Program will continue to be intensified to improve student success, quality of teaching and learning, including research, and to support curriculum renewal in all our universities. This year, we will also be launching, I'm proudly to announce, the Professor Sibusiso Bhengu Development Program to strengthen our historically disadvantaged universities. Within the Department of Higher Education and Training, we have increased the number of students enrolled in TVET colleges, that's our technical, vocational, education and training colleges, from 452,277 in 2020-2021 to 580,849 in the 2022-2023 academic year. We'll also increase TVET college students receiving funding through NSFAS bursaries from 261,404 in 2020-2021 to 329,554 in 2022-2023. We'll also commit to place more than 10,000 unemployed TVET students in workplaces, especially so that they are able to complete their workplace component of their training. We will also release exam results per cycle for qualifying students from last date of exams within 40 days and issue certificates within 3 months of qualifying candidates following publication of results. We have now defeated the scourge of delayed issuing of certificates forever for TVET college students. Our community education and training colleges are now entering into a new dispensation, supported by the rest of the post-school education and training sector. This was affirmed during our successful Community Education and Training Summit that we held earlier this year. That is our CET Summit. The summit resolutions include 200 million rands funding committed to fund skills programs provision for our CET colleges. We are currently reviewing the 5-year enrollment plan for these CET colleges and developing a sustainable funding model for this sector. I'm also very pleased, by the way, that we have absorbed all your temporary lecturers in CET colleges, and they are now permanent. In addition to academic skills and occupational programs already on offer, our CET colleges will offer 2 new accredited programs, which are entrepreneurship and digital skills programs. 900 CET college lecturers will be trained in accredited training programs. We'll also accredit 35 pilot community learning centers, which will be in addition to the 15 community learning centers accredited in 2021-2022 to offer skills programs. Our CET colleges will now utilize the TVET college infrastructure to expand provision of short skills programs and accredited for short skills programs as part of an innovative quality assurance model developed by the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations. We will also ensure, Madam House Chairperson, that a percentage of CETA discretionary grant funding is dedicated to community education and training colleges, including providing some of their training programs. Our CETs will also increase the scope of their partnership with other government departments and community organizations, such as faith-based organizations, for increased access and skills programs provision. I'm pleased to say, amongst others, we work with the Roman Catholic Church and the Methodist Church in skills provision in our CET sector. As a department, we are steadfast to deal with instances of maladministration and corruption at the National Skills Fund. I've appointed a forensic company to conduct a full-scale forensic investigation into financial affairs of the National Skills Fund after an amount of just under 5 billion rand could not be properly accounted for over 2 financial years, as found by the Auditor General. I equally appointed a ministerial task team to conduct a strategic review of the National Skills Fund its general operations, its efficiency, and relevance with regard to the national skills priority of the country. These interventions will ensure that the NSF accounts for the resources allocated to it. I also wish to say that I will further be announcing during the financial year further interventions to release more funds from the National Skills Fund to support, in particular, youth training, including internships and learnerships that are very important as foundations for jobs. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, it is projected that the skills levy that is recovered from employers who contribute 1% of the skills levy towards the skills system will increase from 18.9 billion rand in 2021-2022 to 20.6 billion rand in 2022-2023. We have also taken a decision to prioritize this sector by reallocating additional funds from the National Skills Fund. We've begun a process of crafting what we call One Country, One Skills Plan, which is the Master Skills Plan. This process will promote a more efficient and effective mechanism for our countrywide skills planning. As part of my service level agreement with the SETAs, the Sector Education and Training Authorities, which, by the way, I met one-on-one in March this year, they will incorporate government priorities, especially on those to address the triple challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment, as captured in the National Development Plan in their own sector skills plans. The SETAs will therefore develop their annual performance plans to address skills challenges in various sectors of our economy. In keeping with the President's 2022 State of the Nation address and in support of the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Program, we will ensure that our skills development system increase learners placed in workplace learning programs from 78,317 in the last financial year to 107,000 in the current financial year. We'll also increase our learners registered in skills development programs from 43,885 from the last financial year to 148,000 in this current 2022-23 financial year, and increase our learners entering artisanal programs from 10,302 last financial year to 22,000 during this current financial year, 2022-23. We project that 20,500 learners will pass artisan trade test in 2022-2023, an increase from 15,000 in the 2020-2021. We are indeed making more progress in providing for this crucial layer of mid-level skills. Learners who complete learnerships will also increase from 24,136 in last year to 31,300 in this financial year, and also increase learners who complete internships, and they will stabilize at around 5,200. The SETAs combined placed 44,619 unemployed into learnerships, of which over 34,710 were young people below the ages of 35 years old, and over 25,550 were females at the cost of R1 billion. In the previous financial year, SETAs placed 9,901 interns, of which 9,096 were young people below the age of 35 years old, and 6,455 were females. Our SETAs spent just over 883 million rands in this regard. For TVET placement, SETAs placed about 8,500 learners with females at 5,656 at the total cost of 393 million rands. For the university placement of graduates, SETAs placed 5,183 learners in workplaces at the value of 300 million rands. We've also established entrepreneurship hubs, I'm very pleased to say, at our TVET colleges to support students to move into self-employment after completion of their training. Both our universities and TVET colleges' curricula are being reviewed and strengthened to be relevant to skills required by local employers, communities, and the economy. On the other hand, 95% of sitters are targeted to meet standards of good governance, I'm pleased to say, with 100% of their allocated sitter mandatory grants paid to employers. Sitters will process, qualify, and trade test applications within 40 days of receipt for trade testing and develop credible sector skills plan. The sitters will also produce reports on the implementation of the skill strategy. To further ensure the rapid skilling and training of our youth, particularly those in rural areas and townships, we are going to focus our attention on training areas such as agriculture and information and communication technologies. I also do need to say, Honorable House Chairperson, that much as we are paying a lot of attention to youth who are 35 and below, our programs in CETs and the sitters also do target young people who are not so young, but who are above the age of 35, as well as adults as well. Our sitters will be supporting my Department of Science and Innovation in the development of critical high-end skills in selected technology areas, such as the bioeconomy, space science, technology, energy, intellectual property, and management. On student financial support, government remains firmly committed to support students from poor and working class backgrounds, whilst also putting a sustainable mechanism in place to support students from the so-called missing middle and postgraduate students. The budget of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, NSFAS as we call it, in 2022 to 2023, I am proud to say, is 49 billion rand, of which the Department of Higher Education and Training is contributing 45.9 billion. This includes funding reprioritized from the department's own budget to ensure that the full shortfall for the NSFAS is addressed. Our National Skills Fund will also provide budget support for scholarships and bursaries for this current financial year, amounting to 866 million rand, which is made up of 221 million rands to the National Research Foundation, which funds postgraduate students, 527 million rands to NSFAS, 80 million rands also to the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, and 37.9 million rands to our own DHET's internal scholarship. Collectively, our sitters spent 701 million rand in support of the missing middle students. In the 2021-2022 financial year, our sitters will be spending about 1 billion rand in this regard. Bursaries and loan schemes that our institutions administer internally within our own institutions. As part of the development of our comprehensive student funding model through the Ministerial Task Team on Student Funding, we are engaging both the public and private components of the financial sector to come up with a funding model to support students in the missing middle income bracket and postgraduate students who cannot secure funding from the National Research Foundation. I, however, must indicate that the Ministerial Task Team is already engaging the Banking Association of South Africa, and significant progress is being made in this regard. And the Ministerial Task Team will be presenting its final report to me by the end of May this year. Ngifuna ukuthi-ke kini nayingane zakwethu enisizwa yilo hulumeni wethu eniqhamuke emndenini engenalutho, abazali benu abangazange ngisho okhokho benu bawubona umnyango wenyuvesi nokuthi ikolishi linjani. Sicela ukuthi lamathuba niwabambe ngezandla zombili, ngoba ithuba elinje liza kanye empilweni, nilisebenzisele ukuthi nifunde ukuze nenze imindeni yenu ibe ngcono, nezwe lakithi libe nabantu abaningi abafundile abayokwazi ukuliphatha ngobuchule. On post-school education and training infrastructure, as a department, we remain committed to strengthening and developing our PSET sector by investing in infrastructure to provide quality teaching, learning, and research and innovation spaces. We are also reviewing our current existing model of cooperation with the Development Bank of South Africa, DBSA, to make it more effective and in line with our plans for use of our PSET infrastructure to stimulate economic development and inclusion. The total amount currently available for investment in infrastructure projects across the 26 universities during this financial year to the 2023-24 financial year is 7.5 billion rands, with 2.9 billion going forward, going towards student housing for the delivery of 16,858 beds across 11 universities. Clearly, 2.9 billion rands over 3 years for student accommodation is inadequate. Therefore, we will seek private sector partnerships, including those already indicating they are investing on their own. For example, NSFAS this year will be spending about 11 billion rands to support student accommodation, yet we have not been effectively using that money to guarantee as a guarantee so that we can actually leverage more money from the private sector in order to speed up student accommodation. I will already this year be starting with some pilot projects in this kind of new partnerships that we see happening on this scope. We'll also capitalize the feasibility studies of the new universities of science and innovation and a new crime detection university through the infrastructure and efficiency grant to the value of 6 million rands. I've also revitalized and expanded the Imbali Education and Innovation Precinct project as a pilot to explore and test an alternative modality of education delivery based on closer multi-educational institution, cooperation, closer articulation with science and innovation linkages. This integration will ensure that we produce a well-rounded student who is ready to take up their positions within our economy and society. For this project, the Imbali Precinct, we have allocated 90 million rands during the fourth infrastructure efficiency grant cycle, that is from 2015-16 to 2017-18. For the current MTEF, we are allocating 182 million rands to the Imbali Education and Science Precinct. The next precinct to be established will be in Giyani in Limpopo, where we will be setting up a new university campus as well. We have set aside 10 million rand for the expansion and relocation of the University of Zululand teacher training faculty to the former Zululand parliamentary precinct at Ulundi. This amount will cover planning costs and project initiation, financial requirements, including critical physical planning and build milestones, such as environmental impact assessment. We are also building, I am pleased to say, a real state-of-the-art Sekhukhune Skills Development Center in Limpopo to the value of 146.9 million rand through our wholesale and retail SETA in collaboration with Sekhukhune TVET College. I'm pleased to report that in the current financial year, we've added a number of campus-level projects to our TVET infrastructure initiative to the combined investment of 2.9 billion rands. Our TVET colleges are also not going to remain behind. Our budget for the 2022-23 financial year is 130.1 billion with an annual average of 7% increase. And in conclusion, Madam House Chairperson, I would like to thank the Honorable President Cyril Ramaphosa, the Deputy President, my cabinet colleagues, our Deputy Minister, the Chair and members of the Portfolio Committee for their support and guidance. I would also like to thank USAF, the college principals, the South African Union of Students, the TVET College Students Association, and our trade unions for working with us through the ministerial test team to find collective solution to the challenges posed by COVID-19. Gratitude also goes To my wife, umama wakwami ngaba ngimile la ukuba kangilekeleli, my staff in the ministry, and to the entire Executive Management Committee and staff of the department, the boards and executives of our entities, my special advisors, of course, and everybody who contributed towards the achievement of our mandate as the department. Yilo hulumeni kaKhongolose kuphela owazi izidingo zabantu nentsha yakithi. Siyabonga mphathi wohlelo.
Thokoze mhlonishwa. Honorable Mahlatsi.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members. Chairperson, today we debate the budget vote on higher education and training. It is important that we begin by explaining the importance of a budget and how we should critically engage it. The budget is a tool of policy implementation. Therefore, we need to assess the nexus of the policy, the plan, and the budget. The budget vote is an integral phase of the budget cycle. Chairperson, the midterm strategic framework priority 3 on education, skills, and health locates high-level research and lecturing staff and adequate teaching, research, and accommodation as essential. The decentralized, managed, and autonomy of universities is important, and this should be nurtured while guiding towards national objectives. Chairperson, these are the strategic imperatives this budget vote should respond to. The expansion of higher education and the success of addressing the barriers to access to universities remains a challenge. The problem we experience today is not a problem of lack of access, but the question is whether we have adequate university spaces and university beds to respond to the demand of higher education. The establishment of the Sol Plaatje University in the Northern Cape and the University of Mpumalanga is a testament of the democratic gains, and we welcome the recent developments at the University of Mpumalanga, which has begun offering a Bachelor of Law and admission of 3 doctoral students. In the next 3 years, the plan of the University of Mpumalanga is to add new programs at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels and to establish the Faculty of Humanities, Social Sciences, as well as School for Law. By 2024, the university planned to offer approximately 70 qualifications to cover about 8,000 students. Honorable Minister, we need to pride ourselves as a nation on this new fruit of democracy. This budget has specific support for the 2 institutions to support their growth and operations over the midterm. Chairperson, the university branch in this budget vote supports the completion of the feasibility study to establish a new University of Sciences in Ekurhuleni, Gauteng. These strides are in line with expanding the capacity of our university education. The minister should develop a financial strategy with National Treasury as the establishment of university have a supply effect on the local economic development, on the national skills development, as well as the production of knowledge. The presence of Stellenbosch University generates about 1.1 billion in labor remuneration and sustains 13,406 jobs in the local economy and just over 6.2 billion contribution to the local economy of Stellenbosch. The same applies with all universities. They are a key economic stimulator in local economy. Chairperson, the critical aspect which our university should espouse is a high level of research and adequate lecturing staff. The budget vote supports the new generation of academics program, which plays a critical transformative role of producing new academics, particularly supporting women, Blacks, Africans in particular, as part of the transformation of the universities. We have seen many young female and Black academics growing in the ranks of our university systems. Indeed, we need to encourage and we need to change the status quo of 6 females vice-chancellor out of 621 university. We would like to see more women ascend into positions of power in the PSET sector. The 2015-2016 Fees Must Fall movement and past student struggles have yielded a positive outcomes in probing the affordability of university education and the need to envision a new sustainable funding model. We welcome the work the department is doing in relation to the fee regulation framework. It is important for government to regulate the cost of schooling as well as unequal universities landscape, with other universities being affordable and others not being affordable for the average South African worker. Chairperson, without any fear of contradiction, we can confidently say the ANC government has realized the clause of the Freedom Charter on opening the doors of learning. The National Student Financial Aid Scheme, NSFAS, experienced the most rapid increase of funding allocation. All accepted poor students who qualify for the intended academic programs are supported by NSFAS, who have indeed realized the three-fee higher education for the poor. The department will allocate 144.3 billion over the next 3 years to NSFAS, supporting over 800,000 students in universities and technical and vocational training colleges. We will await the work of the Ministerial Task Team, which is working on sustainable financial model, which will support students who fall within the missing middle, working with other financial sectors and institutions. The ANC government will always prioritize support for the poor, and our government is making effort to leave no one behind through a new financial model. House Chairperson, we are being inundated with cries from students on the lack of quality student accommodation, particularly in institutions relatively rural and less development locations, while students in urban locations experience exorbitant fees. It is important that as much as government has to work with the private sector through student housing infrastructure program, it will be necessary for the department to consider regulating student accommodation costs to avoid exploitative increase of accommodation costs, which will consume a significant allocation of NSFAS. Chairperson, we welcome the budget allocation of 900 million for the current and the next financial year to deliver 9,500 beds, with the Tshwane University of Technology allocated 33,337.9 million. And the University of KwaZulu-Natal with 200 million, just to name a few. Honorable Chairperson and members, the post-schooling education and training system is a large system which requires continuous and consistent oversight. If we are not to respond to the challenges of this sector, the Department of Higher Education should consider strengthening its oversight administrative support in order to timelessly respond to the emerging challenges of the PZ sector. As contained in the midterm strategic framework, the department has to guide institutions of higher learning towards national objectives. Therefore, the department should have the capabilities and capacity to guide this institution for socio-economic transformation. The African National Congress supports vote 17. I thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. I hope the Secretariat is busy with checking how many minutes maybe speakers leave for their colleagues. They will inform us. From the DA, we now invite the Honorable King.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson and colleagues, the July unrest, state capture, and the ANC stance on the Ukraine matter all have a common denominator. They lead to decreasing investor confidence and a rise in CPI, leaving us at a very low point as a nation, financially, morally, and mentally. With a 4.1% increase in education, as per the 2021 Education Price Index, university students will not be able to offset the rise in tuition and accommodation fees. This year, tuition fees increased by 4.3% and accommodation fees increased by 6.3%. This will lead to a policy dilemma on how to spend money best to address poverty, inequality, and unemployment. The 134 billion rand allocation for the academic year presents an obstacle in terms of the size of the allocation as well as the impact that results from the allocation. With a decreasing tech space exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic and rising inflation costs, socialist policy funding will not be feasible in the higher education sector. The biggest culprit is fee-free higher education, with the minister constantly contradicting himself on the sustainability of fee-free higher education. The funding shortfall to fund fee-free higher education had NEFSA in a tailspin, with the chairperson and CEO too afraid to allocate funds without confirmation from Treasury. This resulted with students at CPUT sleeping in corridors and on the street because funding decisions were not verified. The IT system failure did not make it any easier for student appeals, with many still awaiting funding appeal outcome. To avoid the funding dilemma, a tiered funding model should be incorporated to ensure equitable funding inclusive of the missing middle. During the health mini plenary, the Minister of Health expressed his concern about the shortage of doctors in the country. To push the socialist agenda even further, the Department of Home Affairs decided that most professions in the health sector should not be added to the critical skills list. The admissions policy at most universities that were transparent to divulge their intake in prior applications brought to the fore the deliberate attempt to discriminate against and minimize the uptake of minority groups in the medical profession, irrespective of their outstanding academic performance and socio-economic background. This apartheid tactic in the guise of transformation is sacrificing equality fit for purpose for equity, which will have a knock-on effect in the health sector with critical skills shortages. To add insult to injury, the autonomy of institutions that were compromised by the forced transformation agenda of the ANC to rule out Afrikaans and Namakwa as indigenous languages to South Africa in the latest language policy of the Department of Higher Education. Finally, we forced the minister to change his mind. The impact of socialist policy has created an environment where the autonomy of institutions has been compromised to increase tuition and accommodation fee funding at the expense of paying students, as was the case at TUT, where a self-funded female student was asked to vacate a university room for a NEFSA student. The minister and the department's quest to ensure radical transformation, its entities could not keep up. CHE, SAQA, and QCTO have dropped the ball drastically. The Council for Higher Education's pursuit to restore and reinvent themselves forgot one crucial function, that of ensuring the accreditation of university courses are regularly reviewed to align to the NDP outcome. The irregular course realignment at WUSU could have been avoided had it been dealt with when universities merged with colleges. This neglect of duty has placed WUSU in a precarious position of postponing this year's graduation because of the realignment issue. SAQA's financial operational constraints can no longer be remedied by cash injections from other line items in the budget. The slow pace of digitization cannot be a stumbling block for national and international qualification accreditation. Similarly, the concern for QCTO. The turnaround time to issue certification is hampering the employment process of many students. All of this, coupled with the National Skills Fund's inability to spend the required funding for skills training, is trampling on the dreams of many. Minister, I've received an email from a gentleman waiting for his Red Seal certificate, and it reads, I've only received feedback from the training center. I've not received feedback from CETA and the DHE. I never receive feedback from QCTO, which normally passes the email down the line. The process should take 18 months, but we are waiting for years. We are stuck and seen as unskilled labor instead of the tradesmen we are, close quote. These are the lived realities faced by students on a daily basis. If these obstacles and discrepancies are not addressed, then I'm afraid the dream of the president for DHET to be a placement agency for the 10,000 graduates to do in-service training at TVET colleges will not materialize. Minister, while you throw money at grandiose projects and the bill for corruption grew exponentially, the funding of universities decreased in real terms to almost 30% since the inception of democracy. Minister, a Ugandan academic, Professor Mamdani, once said of the Makerere University, open quote, the new state stepped in as a guarantor of social justice. We celebrated, but not for long. Soon the state altered the mode of governance of universities, and we came to confront state-appointed vice-chancellors, deans, even heads of department. We then discovered the importance of university autonomy. There is no mention of a new norm for the level of funding, let alone making up for the past neglect. No pledges to find money elsewhere in the better designed budget. This crisis has played itself out, with the student bursaries not sufficient to cope and university grants cut yearly. We are victims of success. Victims, you are in charge and you have been there for the 28 years. You have failed to accept responsibility. Instead, you are busy restoring your old regime. Universities as places to be manipulated, despised, and attacked, and SASCO as your natural holder of the right to protest, violently so. In the end, Minister, we will keep pushing to address the crisis in our higher education system to ensure that higher learning institutions can continue to meet the objective of adequately preparing South Africans for the job market. I thank you.
Thank you. We now proceed and invite from the EFF, the Honorable Chirwa. You are recognized.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Greetings to the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, Julius Sello Malema, all the officials, commissars, fighters, and ground forces of the EFF, of the only movement that cares about young people in this country. We have once again been forced, due to lack of leadership that is imminent in this department, to raise the persisting issue of gender-based violence and the violent crimes that continue to engrave themselves in institutional culture of higher education institutions. The brutal rape and murder of Precious Ramabulana from Capricorn TVET campus 2 years later has still not resulted in intentional and intensified building of university and TVET residences with the urgency it actually requires. Students outside of institutional accommodation continue being vulnerable to crime, as even when it pertains to something as basic as resident buses, they don't have access to that and thus become easy targets for criminals lurking in surrounding corners, knowing very well students carry with them laptops, cell phones, and other educational materials of value. It is horrifying that parents send their children to get an education and their children return home raped, tortured, or in conflicts because the thugs of the ANC are struggling to decide who amongst themselves must be next in line for a tender or to get accommodation accreditation, like Philemon Lukele. That Hillary Gadi, who was tortured, raped, and killed, was possibly hidden in one of these places for days on end, where your department has entrusted with the safety of students, calls for a deeper look at your leadership, Minister Blade Nzimande. You have effectively led the higher education sector into total disarray and its highest ever seen level of violence meted against students, especially Black girls and women. All corrupt gorgons in this country and amateurs find solace in the existence of your department. Our institutions of higher learning have been turned into practical sites of corruption as the primary module and tangible consequences, unless if you're collateral damage like Sibongile Mani. Mutewa TVET College is on its third week of closure because of issues of money. Nobody's held accountable. The gravy train of your department is always on the move. In your praise speech, dubbed the debate of the State of the Nation address in February, you unashamedly lied to the people of South Africa by claiming that NSFAS has registered an increase of 316% from 2015 to 2021. Minister, thousands of graduates who are beneficiaries of NSFAS are unable to access their qualifications as they are told NSFAS hasn't settled their fees, and these very poor students in universities are now expected to settle their fees or never ever get their qualifications. These young people are made part of your stats to give an impression that your department is hard at work, yet the opposite is actually true. There's a general collapse of governance in universities and TVET colleges because of corrupt and unethical council members, some of whom are deployed by your department. Universities such as VUT, MUT, WUSU, and many others that have experienced unprecedented corruption. They demand tenders and force executives to hire their family members, and the best punishment given to them when caught is mere dissolution of councils. If you were still a communist, Mr. Blade Nzimande, I was going to caution you about the possible corporate capture of higher education. But seeing that you enjoy talking left and walking right, let me advise you to pay attention to the growing interest of big corporations in universities and colleges. Universities and colleges are supposed to be spaces of knowledge and skills production, not to feed hyenas that are always looking for tenders and all sorts of projects. These hyenas Start by donating funds into research projects and thereafter corporatize faculties, just as the EFF warned your party about the kleptocracy that had become the order of the day in the country a few years ago. When it was unpopular to say anything about state capture, I put it to you that there's a war amongst big companies to take over ICT infrastructure in universities under the guise of fourth IR in advancing online teaching amidst the pandemic. Support these institutions with infrastructure and efficiency grant to develop university-owned student accommodation that is safe and conducive for learning. Let universities stop outsourcing this critical responsibility to private companies that are only driven by profit motive and nothing else. A big chunk of NSFAS money goes to student accommodation. The exorbitant private student accommodation fees are so high that a single bed is equal to a 2-bedroom apartment rented by non-students. It is ridiculous that a student can pay over 70,000 rands per annum on student accommodation. 4 students renting 1 apartment can therefore pay 280,000 per annum. This is where NSFAS money goes, to fund the greedy capitalists who see students as customers they should profit from. Ensure that each campus in the country has campus security with a sex crimes unit, and that all criminal cases open with institutions are directly linked with the SAPS. Synchronize the goals and needs of the economy with the number of places available at each institution of higher learning. Require each university in the country to offer degrees and courses in coding, computer hardware development, artificial intelligence, robotics, and internet and biotechnology. Establish a satellite campus for the University of Pretoria, University of Free State, University of the Northwest, and their faculties of natural and agricultural sciences, which will focus on agriculture and agro-processing. Utilize the same system in various and relevant universities or institutions for mining and mineral beneficiation and renewable energy. We reject this report. We reject the executive of this department. We reject Blaine Zimande. We reject Buti Manamela, who thinks Twitter spaces will hide his inadequacies. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Chairperson.
Thank you.
Honorable Chair.
Yes, Honorable Matazi. Yes.
I've raised my hand. I'm sure I was not recognized. Chair, Honorable Chirwa has said on this platform that the minister has lied. I think it's unparliamentary and she must withdraw.
I was watching here, maybe you raised your late after the issue, but let me caution that is unparliamentary, Honorable Chirwa. Even at the end, you mentioned the members of the executive by name without a title. So please, because I didn't see your hand, I will, and I'm watching the hands here, it came late. Let me just say, honorable members, let's stick to the rules, please. Thank you. We now call from the IFP, the Honorable Ngobo.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. I am standing in for the Honorable Sanele Zondo. Honorable House Chair, the Department of Higher Education and Training must be commended for its sterling work in truly delivering transformation in the higher education sector. It is one of the only departments that have managed to ensure that targets have been met regarding the National Development Plan. While these milestones are commendable, far too many young people and their families are standing in queues and anxiously waiting feedback from the National Students' Aid Scheme on whether students can register, whether they can be able to study and be accommodated on campuses. It cannot be that students are held to ransom and do not receive their transcripts due to the inability of the NSFAS to make their payouts. We cannot allow this entity to falter when it is responsible for the billions of rands in aid funds. This House and all South Africans are well aware that when corruption rears its ugly head, it destroys the good intention for which funds are meant to be disseminated to students and to support families who live below the required income threshold. Speaker, Honorable House Chair. The IFP would like to support the committee's recommendations regarding the myriad of issues raised to ensure that we get the DHET back on track and to get students back in classes and on the road to recovery from the devastating effects of the coronavirus pandemic on the sector. Under the department's current leadership, we are pleased with the progress made in ensuring that the vacancies are filled, yet more can be done to make sure that all targets are reached. We, with the highest unemployment rate in the country and the highest number of young people out of jobs, we must ensure that we do the right thing in this department, which is to sharpen our focus and ensure that critical skills and strategies are addressed adequately. Honorable House Chair, it is imperative that this department and all its line function entities are supported while oversight is increased from portfolio committee's side to hold all the stakeholders to account. The lack of consequence management for those who step out of line is a matter that requires urgent attention. A very stern and clear message must be sent to all officials who are party to bungling the financial processes of this department and its entities. That tough message must read something along the lines of, you have to shape up or get out. We anyway do, as the IFP, support this budget, Honorable House Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ngobo. We now proceed and call for all from the FF Plus, the Honorable Boshoff.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Today we debate the delivery of post-school education and training by the South African state. My contribution
Honorable
will be...
Boshoff, just wait. I'm sorry. Honorable Ngawangkelu Vale Mike. Ngelu Vale Mike, you are talking behind.
My apologies. My apologies.
Honorable, okay, thank you. Proceed, Honorable, you may start. I will give you full minutes, start from the beginning.
Honorable House Chair, I was just saying that my whole contribution will be in English today, as I want to engage with the Honorable Minister in a sincere discussion. The dominant view of the state is in a certain sense totalitarian. The state claims all political expression for itself and recognize only the individual of parties and political movements is to facilitate this relation, not to question it. Whether in its liberal or in its socialist guise, this is the state's assertion. Politicracy has been put forward as an alternative to the totalitarian state, to the
Chairperson, that man is out of order, Chairperson. We can't express our state as totalitarian.
Honorable Tseki, I have not recognized you. You can raise your hand and state a point of order. Please, you don't just press and speak.
I proceed, Honorable Chair.
So your hand is not up. I'm watching the monitor here, and I haven't seen any hand. And as such, I'm going to allow you to proceed, Honorable Boshoff.
It explains...
Unless there is a point of order.
Honorable Chair, I'll proceed that politicracy explains the state as a symphony of politically meaningful units, some smaller, some bigger, some distinct, some overlapping, sometimes competing, but always complementing each other. The biggest state, the centralized state, claims education as its terrain, always encroaching on other role players. It has the advantage of the state budget in doing so. The state claims to care, but too much care becomes smothering. Over the centuries, universities were intellectual communities, often funded by the state, but mostly critical of it. Own sources of income guaranteed a degree of independence, as did the loyal community of students, lecturers, bursary givers, alumni, who all celebrated the unique character of a specific institution. Universities as such, but also individual universities acquired political meaning of their own. The centralizing state prefers something else. In South Africa, the first step was to amalgamate university so that no specific institutional culture remains. Then campuses are spread over hundreds of kilometers. Then it is insisted that the staff of each campus should reflect the whole country's demography. Then new universities can be created, like those mentioned by the Honourable Minister today, over which a state exerts its dominance from the very start. All this aimed to establish the state and its premises as politically neutral. These institutions are not designed to question the status quo, but to entrench it. Training takes place according to the dictates of the state and the economy. Technical colleges typically have less of a loyal community around it than universities. Therefore, amalgamation and geographical spread is sufficient to stop a politically significant community from forming around such institutions. Currently, even an ordinary school with its school governing body constitutes a community of some political significance, but the TVET college is not a community, it is a set of classes and workshops. Yet, these depoliticized institutions do not work, or when it does, it is despite the state sterilization process, not as a result of it. Universities like Pretoria, where I studied, may reflect little of the institution I used to know, but its colors still move me, therefore I wear it today. The caring, smothering state has not yet absorbed the momentum. That is why institutions like Soltech and academia can do a limited budget. It is the expression of communities rallying around their places of learning, which are also places of training and also places of education. Ultimately, places of meaning to a whole community whether they have direct links to it or not. The alternative is an unsustainable grant scheme, universities in and out of administration, students who burn facilities, TVET colleges who just never seem to get it right. In short, a huge, clumsy edifice where real education, training, and meaning is more like a byproduct than the actual thing. But at least it serves the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. We now proceed and invite and recognize the Honorable, the Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, the Honorable Manamela.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson, Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Honorable Dr. Blakes Nzimande, honorable members of the Portfolio Committee of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, chaired by Honorable Nompendulo Mkachwa, officials of the Department of Higher Education and Training led by our DG, Dr. Nkosinathi Sishi, ladies and gentlemen, budgets are the heart that pumps the necessary resources to the body that is our nation. Departments are the arteries through which these resources are transferred based on where they are needed most to ensure that South Africa works. Therefore, this process, the budget vote process, are the most overlooked and yet probably one of the most important instruments of democracy outside of elections. We take the weight of this task not very lightly because millions of South Africans look upon this House to appropriately allocate resources where they're importantly and urgently needed. The Minister and I spent most of this past few weeks engaged into not what we should essentially include in the final version of our respective budget vote speeches, but whether this is indeed a budget that will continue to serve our country and its people's vision of how a post-school education and training system should look like. We're under no illusion that we know it all, and thus are further dependent on the millions of voices the sector serves students, workers, academics, and society at large, but also the wisdom and expertise of the bureaucrats in the department and the sharp eyes of members of parliament whose constituencies are expecting nothing less but service. This year, the university sector, as Minister indicated, has grown to a massive 1.1 million students with a budget allocation of 79.1 billion, meaning that we're becoming more closer to the vision of the NDP on expanding the post-school education sector. Importantly, more resources would be directed towards students funding, especially for new entrants, expansion of the university sector through new infrastructure development and the maintenance of existing one, the training of new academics through the NGEP program, and support to historically disadvantaged institutions through the Professor Sibusiso Bengu Development Framework. We are ever worried about the decline in the number of enrollments in the TVET sector. A lot of resources have been invested in developing the TVET infrastructure, training and development of lecturers, building of new workshops that simulate the workplace environment, especially in our centers of specialization, strengthening our links with industry to keep our curriculum up to date and ensure that we produce students who are skill ready for the labor market. I want to take this opportunity to call on parents of learners who are doing grade 9 and grade 12, unemployed young people who want to develop their skills for employment or entrepreneurship, workers who want to improve their skills and apprenticeship, and artisans to consider TVETs and community colleges as institutions of choice. This budget places the health and safety of students at the center of spending in the post-school education and training system. Our priority remains ensuring students graduate alive and make a meaningful contribution to society. In the public university, TVET and CET sectors alone, we trained over 14,000 frontline staff that included security, cleaning, and other essential service staff, and provided further training to more than 14,000 student volunteers and peer educators. Through our screening tool called Health Check, we've conducted daily COVID screenings and issued 19 million daily passport for risk-free entrance into our campuses. As a result of our work, the vaccination status among students and staff has shown that over 64.4% of our student population is either fully or partially vaccinated, which is higher than the national average. One of our other biggest concern is the national problem of gender-based violence. In recent years, we've unfortunately seen a number of incidents of gender-based violence in our learning institutions, some of which were so brutal that we often lacked and struggled to find the words to describe them. In 2021, we strengthened our response to gender-based violence by establishing the Education and Training Gender-Based Violence Task Team, which is responsible for the implementation of the policy framework. Additional to the task team, we launched 3 important guidance documents, and these are procedural guidelines on sexual and gender-related misconduct, the implementation guidelines dealing with rape and sexual assaults, and the application of the Code of Ethics. As a preventative measure, we also launched a second curriculum module on GBV that saw a huge enrollment and uptake to 104,000 students. And yes, we are doing something, Honorable Chirwa, in dealing with gender-based violence in our campuses. And to date, over 11,000 students receive support services for gender-based violence. We will put out all stops in ensuring that it comes to an end. And we're having discussions with the South African Police Services through their Deputy Minister to look at issues relating to campus safety, and details of interventions around these will be made public once the 2 ministries have finalized them, so that sins that we've seen earlier this year at universities such as Zululands become a thing of the past. One of the most important stakeholders in the PSET sector is student leadership. We acknowledge the student leaders operate in a highly complex environment and find themselves having to constantly balance their leadership roles and their studies. To support the student leadership in their role, we're offering a student leadership capacity development program targeted at SRCs. In addition to improving their leadership practices, the program also aims to empower them with the knowledge to better engage in policy discourse on matters relating to the governance and sustainability of the PSET sector. We can confidently state that over the period under review, our engagement with the student leadership has had a number of positive outcomes, including helping us to avert a protest by embracing a culture of robust engagement and constructive dialogue. As a country, we've also earned another feather in our cap by as we will be participating in the 46th World Skills Competition in Shanghai later this year, taking part in 41 skills. These will be preceded by the national competitions next month in Durban. We hope to continue with the success we achieved in April this year at the World Skills Africa competition held in Namibia, where we took the top position and became the leading country in Africa, winning a total of 8 medals. We constantly seek to enhance the quality and integrity of academics program, and towards this end, we are currently reviewing and updating the program and qualification offered by our TVET colleges. This is done to align with the needs of industry and society. As an outcome, we've implemented 24 more reviewed subjects starting from January 2022. We developed a new stream focusing on robotics in the NCV, information technology and computer science program, which previously focused on programming and system development only. RPL, or recognition of prior learning and articulation, have been the cornerstone of the first ever white paper on education and training in a democratic South Africa in 1995. Through this white paper, we sought to redress inequalities, increase access to learning opportunities and employment, ensure equality and equity among all South Africans, and contribute to the pursuit of lifelong learning for all. We are undertaking a comprehensive review of policy and legislation governing the post-school education and training system to ensure effectiveness and efficiency. The relatively poor articulation from the TVET sector into higher education has been a matter of concern for us and other key stakeholders within the PSET sector. The Council on Higher Education has initiated a research project to help the department identify the barriers to articulation from the TVET sector into higher education, and the funding of the Council on Higher Education research will be used by our department to intervene and explore options for overcoming the barriers and for promoting articulation. One of the things that guarantees the faith that our citizens have, honorable members, in our public education system is the integrity of the academic programs that our learning higher institutions offer. We were recently confronted with media reports that suggested and questioned the integrity of certain programs that are offered at the Walter Sisulu University. We reacted with agency. As part of a national round of institutional audit, the Council on Higher Education is undertaking a full institutional review and audit of Walter Sisulu University. And the purpose of this audit is to ensure full compliance with the applicable regulatory requirement. Our department and chair are monitoring the situation closely and will follow through the directive of the minister that no student will be prejudiced as a result of the oversight committed by the leadership of WUSU. The target, honorable members, of training 30,000 artisans per annum by 2030, articulated in the NDP, remains on site. With the establishment of the Motheo National Artisan Development Center, funded by Services SETA, the construction and equipment of the Academy in Hillside, Bloemfontein, in the amount of 500 million. This will see the enrollment of more than 1,000 artisans per annum. These and other trades will ensure that we really meet the objective of meeting the 30,000 artisans per annum by 2030. Honorable members, in conclusion, higher education remains one of the crucibles within which our democracy can prosper.
Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. I don't see a member of the UDM on my participants list. Do we have maybe? I missed? Nobody. So I proceed and call on the ANC, Honorable Litsie, as I hand over to my colleague, Honorable Mahlaule. Thank you.
Chair, can you just clarify the issue of minutes?
In accordance to the records, Honorable Mahlatsi left 4 minutes, 37 seconds. Thank you.
I hand them over to Honorable Litsie, Chair.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good day to everybody. Let me start by wishing my wife a happy belated birthday. She celebrated it on Monday. equally wish a brother who sometimes calls himself my father, Comrade Reginald Nkabinde, a belated birthday. He celebrated it yesterday. South Africa's economic development will not be realized without capable, skilled population. In order to realize structural transformation towards a more industrialized economy, technical skills are a critical driver with the current production changes due to artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things. In order for our country not to be left behind on emerging economic value chains, we need to adapt our skills development programs. This will be in tandem with bringing about socio-economic transformation in a sustainable manner. We will have placed the nation in a trajectory of growth and inclusion. The contribution of manufacturing as a percentage of gross domestic product has declined from 20% in the early 1990s to current 13%. It is important to state that manufacturing employment in this country is as follows. Semi-skilled is 61.9%, followed by the skilled, which is 21.8%, and low-skilled occupation, which is 16.4%. It is for these reasons a skills revolution is a necessity to address unemployment in this country. The level of youth unemployment in our country, particularly those not in employment, education, and training, is at alarming rates. And we need to act together as a nation. We need to build on our tremendous democratic gains through improving our skills development program outcomes. We need to address the skewed distribution of the budget to the university program, as the minister would have said. Despite university principals complaining about the allocation and not allocating adequate support to the TVET program, the higher education program has been allocated 88 billion rand by the ANC-led government, which is 80.9% of the budget, whilst the TVET program is allocated 12.6 billion. The resource concentration to higher education will unwittingly decapacitate the growth of the TVET sector to expand its ability to adapt to the changing world. House Chair, the link between our skills development programs and TVET qualification, the needs of the economy is paramount. Chair, I'm really disturbed here.
Sorry, a bit. Honorable Munyai, can you mute your mic and allow the speaker to continue?
Thanks, Chair. I also realized that it was 37 seconds more. The skills needs of the economy are also in the continuum ever-changing, hence training and our sectors are important and should be at the cutting edge of sectoral development. Out of the 10.2 million young people aged 15 to 24, 33% of them, which is just over 3.3 million youth, were not in employment, education, or training in Q2 of 2021. It is therefore important that we ensure substantive resources are allocated to expand the capacity of our TVET colleges and equip them with the required facilities. In that 3.3 million youth, we need to ask ourselves the critical question of the impact of our program. We need to ask whether our PSAT system has the capacity to provide mass training and skills development for this country. Currently, the number of enrollment targets for the current budgetary year at TVET colleges is 620,000, which is lower than the 2018-2019 financial year by over 60,000 students. Honorable members, this reflects a decline and growth of enrollment. A critical training institute is a community education training colleges, which provides much needed opportunities for the youth and older South Africans. We welcome the growth of number of enrollments in our CET colleges to 266,424, with a projected annual increase of over 60,000 annually. This is a commendable growth, and this is the type of enrollment growth we need to experience in order to address the problem of youth not in education, employment, or training. In order to increase enrollment of TVET colleges, it is important to address the supply of the system, and this requires increasing infrastructure and human capacity. We welcome the allocation of 710 million rands for the TVET infrastructure and efficiency grant for the current year, but we are concerned about the subsequent decline in the outer years. We welcome the special allocations to Gert Sibande TVET College, and I hope Honorable Chiro is listening on this one. We welcome the special allocation to Gert Sibande TVET College with 188 million and Majuba TVET College with 173 million for student accommodation. This, Honorable Minister, is a welcome shift from a system which did not make a provision for student accommodation for colleges. To improve opportunities of graduates from our colleges, it is important that we expand experiential learning programs which enabled on-site experience, thus creating a seamless transition to workplace. Honorable Minister, welcome the 107,000 workplace-based learning programs for learnership, internship, and work-integrated learning by 2023, which you have initiated. We also welcome the 20,500 artisans to be certified this current year. We have confidence in the efforts of the department that you are leading. House Chair, we need a skills development compact with labor, business, civil society, and South Africans at large to commit to ensure that our job market creates more training opportunities and work opportunities. In the face of increasing poverty and unemployment, our inability to forge such a social compact will always have the country in a precipitate of social instability. A major aspect of realizing the required policy outcome is the capability of governance system and capability of human resources. Numerous sectors such as the National Skills Fund services and others have governance challenges which require continuous oversight by the department. As the ANC in Parliament will ensure that all entities implement audit plans on finding by the Auditor General and implementation of consequence management. Allow me then, Chairperson, to try and respond to what Honorable King of the DA would have said earlier on when she spoke on NSFAS and the funding system in South Africa. What she's actually saying, and I hope South Africans listen to her very carefully, what she's actually saying is that NSFAS must be scrapped. There must be a new funding system that is created that will pretend as if everybody who writes matric, they write matric from a point of view of being equal. Those of us who come from Tusas Chaba Secondary School must be judged equally with those who can afford a school fees, an annual school fees from Crawford College of 360,000, whereas my school fees in Tusas Chaba was 50 rands. What she's actually saying is that Black people, majority of them who are poor, who come from programs, who come from families that could not, make sure that they even have a laptop. What she's actually saying is that us who have never seen a laptop in our lives must be judged equally with those who even own these particular laptops. What she's also saying is that the state and others must pay for those who can afford to pay for their tuition. What she's actually saying or implying is that we must exclude Blacks in majority from accessing the university program. We must exclude many Blacks.
Chairperson, point of order. Chairperson.
A point of order has been called. What is the point of order?
Chairperson, please ask Honorable Atia to refrain from putting words in my mouth which he assumed was said. He must talk on facts and not on assumption. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. I'll allow us to proceed. Honorable Atia, can you proceed?
Thank you very much, Chair. I said what she's implying is that, and I did not say that's what she said on this one, but that's what she should have said on NSFAS. But what she's implying is that those who can afford must be paid for by the state, therefore excluding millions of our people, millions of those who are poor, those who come from the shacks, those who come from poor backgrounds must then be excluded.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Chairperson, point of order.
What is the point of order?
Chair, the member is now casting aspersions and misleading the House blatantly. None of this was ever said by the honourable member. Please ask him to
Chairperson. Chairperson.
Can everybody come down? Honourable Schreiber, it's a point of debate that Honourable Letia is raising. I have sourced wisdom from the table, and that is my ruling. It's the point of discussion that must happen. I'll allow Honourable Letia to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm just worried about my minutes. And therefore, we are therefore asking our people to really open their eyes, open their ears, listen and watch who says what, especially those who come from poor backgrounds, who have absolutely nothing, who can't even afford to have a scarf team going to school, that there are people who are asking the scrapping of a system called NSFAS that caters for the poor. By the way, NSFAS does not cater only for Black people, it caters for everybody who their combined income is below 350,000. Why would we want or exclude anyone who's white in this country from accessing NSFAS? In fact, NSFAS themselves, they go on a road trip. Once the applications are open, they go there, they ask, including white communities, to apply. Those who qualify, who do not, who meet the threshold of 350,000 cap. So it's a fallacy that we don't, we exclude the minority which are white in this country. It's fallacy. And I think Honorable Chirwa, we note your concerns, but we also believe that some of the, you know, when we are debating budget vote, we are debating from what we call a report. And on this report, in order for us to have a report, the department comes, present their APPs, they present their strat plan, and we develop a report from there. If you guys, as the EFF, would have attended such meetings, you will not be here talking about such those things, because you have missed an important part. They've almost 100 million has been put aside for TVET College accommodation grant. So I think if you had attended, you would have assisted us a great deal. And Chair, in conclusion, as the ANC will support the budget vote 17, it is firstly aligned to the medium-term strategic framework policy priority on skills development, training, and secondly, the budget responds to expanding skills development opportunities and increased training capacity. Anybody who think this is not aligned, then really they need to get themselves checked. Lastly, the budget support access to TVET colleges for the poor, and we stand for the poor. And unlike what Honorable Member for Boshoff would have said, we are a government that supports, and that is—
Thank you very much, Honorable Letia. Thank you very much, Honorable Letia. We now proceed to Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, the National Freedom Party will support Budget Vote 7 tabled here today, Budget Vote 17 tabled here today. Now, a lot of work indeed has been done, a lot of good work has been done. However, I believe that a lot more needs to be done in order to address the challenges many of our students face today. I know the minister is not going to agree with me, because I don't think he'd want to agree with his counterpart, disagree with his counterpart. But clearly, Chairperson, Basic Education Department is not preparing learners or students that are now going to higher education, clearly. And that is why you find 60% of students drop out in the first year. Now, the other thing is this: do we have some mechanism to measure the money that we spend on higher education, particularly with student financial aid? Do we have any mechanism to measure what happens after that, whether they qualify, are they absorbed into the labor market? What is the success rate? Is this money that we are spending being put to good use? Now, whilst I say that there's a lot of good work being done, and I want to go back to government's word in inverted commas, leave no one behind. Unfortunately, I must say that there are those that are getting left behind because of difficulties they're experiencing, particularly on the 350,000 rand qualifying criteria. But very importantly, even the appeal processes, while it is there, it is, it's very laborious. Many of these students are having great difficulty in getting their appeals heard timeously. And for that reason, you find many of them actually lose a year or 2 years. So that's, I think, another matter that I think we must at some stage. The other thing is this, is the TVET colleges particularly speaking to the skills needs of the country? And I heard time and time again about the number of artisans we are hoping to produce. Well, I can tell you currently we have more foreign artisans in the country than we have from the local community, even though we are spending billions of rand. I want to raise concern about what happened to Ms. Sibongile Mani, was sentenced to 5 years in prison. But what I can say is this, I'm sure that if a thorough investigation is done, you would find a lot more cases coming up of people that may not have qualified. I think my time is up. You are trying to tell me that. Thank you very much. The National Freedom Party would support this budget vote.
You still had seconds. I was just indicating that you will soon exhaust your time. But thank you very much. Can we proceed to Honorable Jafta, AIC?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, this budget vote must underpin our gravitation towards the fourth industrial revolution. This is so because we need to cultivate skills both at TVET colleges and universities to respond to the growing demand of our fourth industrial economy. The budget must facilitate access to post-school education and training as demanded by the National Development Program. Our resolve must be to lift our indigenous people out of the yoke of poverty through research funding and skills development. Honorable Chair and members, NSFAS has come under severe criticism in the past. We note the progress made in this regard and hope that it will be sustained going forward. We are worried, Minister, that certain universities have been reported to be lacking accreditation in terms of offering specific courses. This is the subject for which the ministry must be engaged in. Honorable Chair, the speed with which the piloting of community colleges is going about is not entirely pleasing. We need to train new academics and set a specific fund from which these colleges will be funded. The National Skills Fund must collaborate with the ministry in this regard. The department must also pay due regard to student housing. This must be done in consultation with Minister Delhi. In closing, Honorable Chair, we can only hope that this budget will transform the post-schooling system and drive skills development, which must be underpinned by the fourth industrial revolution currently. On those grounds, Honorable Chair, the AIC supports this budget vote. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable members, I see that Honorable Nyonzo of the PAC is on the platform. Can I check their participation in this debate?
Yes, Honorable Chair.
Go ahead, Honorable Nyonzo.
Hi, Honorable Chair, CPAC siyayixhasa le budget. Siyayixhasa kakhulu kodwa siyacela uMinister makaqinisekise uba uSibongile Mani lo akabanjwa abheke ejele ngenxa yempazamo zika-NSFAS, ngenxa yempazamo zika-Intel imali, ngenxa yempazamo okanye ngenxa ye-corruption okanye i-fraud ibizanye ukwenziwa phaya ziyafakwa emntwini orongo. Kona siyayixhasa ibudget. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nyonzo. We'll now move to Honorable Tarabella Machesi of the DA.
Thank you, Chair. The majority of South Africans are unable to compete or participate in our economy. They are locked into a cycle of poverty, joblessness, and inequality, which presents a threat to our democracy. If you don't believe me, think of the looting that recently happened in KZN last year. Our social and economic crisis deepens daily. At the heart of this lies a government that is completely incapable of moving us into a better future. They are sleeping on the job. Honorable members, 66.5% of our youth is unemployed. We are indeed in trouble. It is without doubt that when the ANC introduced the free education, they didn't anticipate the number of students who would apply to universities. They did not do the head count and take to cognizance that we are a youthful nation. And they didn't even anticipate that both TVET and CET are not adequate and neither desirable to South African parents and South African students. Abazitembi is a kamo, the TVET. Not because the idea of TVET qualification is not appealing. In fact, we all agree that we need skills. However, TVET colleges are grossly underfunded, with a curriculum that does not speak to our economic needs and a lack of capacity building initiative required to support our lecturers, management, and practitioners within TVETs. Our higher education system fails to skill our people. Even if they do receive training, a large number of those still cannot find work. Graduates move from one internship to the next without getting permanent employment positions. Internship, Minister, is not employment. This government needs to expand the economy. Upskilling our youth is one of the goals of this government, but their actions do not speak to these goals. According to the NDP, TVET colleges have been identified as essential in skilling our youth. And the NDP target has been set to such a way that 2.5 million students should register at TVET colleges by 2030. However, the department and the minister has never shown the committee their strategic plan on how they will tackle this goal. In the contrary, the annual performance report shows that the enrollments of TVET colleges programs have decreased by 32.8%, which is from 673,000 in 2019 to 452,000 in 2020. At the same time, the minister's budget of 12 billion is a mere 11% of the department's budget. And if you compare that with the university budget of 92 billion, it is actually a drop in the ocean. Not forgetting a lack of adequate infrastructure budget, which means this plan is just one of those ANC pipe dreams. Honorable Chair, we need an equitable budget that speaks to the goals of the department, the NDP, and the aspiration of our youth. As we speak, TVETs are not receiving the number of headcounts that are desirable purely because of lack of adequate and acceptable accommodation. For instance, if you look at Tabanchu, the Muteo College there hardly has an acceptable accommodation for students. It actually exposes the students to danger and also to gender-based violence. And also not forgetting the delays in certificate issuing once you complete your studies. This is utterly discouraging. It perpetuates poverty and limits graduates from taking advantage of the few jobs opportunities which are out there. Minister, you know that TVET colleges are not attractive to South Africans because of all these reasons, and hence the headcount is dwindling. Honorable Chair, the budget cuts are also not helping. Programs that talk about social cohesion and e-learning have been cut by about 12 million. CET is also in a dire situation. The CET program constitutes 2% of the overall budget of DHET. The 200,000 rand that the minister is talking about is not new money. It is just money that has been moved from one line item within the department to another line item. We need new money for CET, Minister. And this is despite its critical role in supporting the development of short-term skills for out-of-school young people and adults to access the labor market. CET relies on basic education to provide access to teaching and learning. They actually do not have resources, nor do they have any infrastructure. And the fact that there is no intention of providing infrastructure, we need a more proactive arrangement that must be done. And for example, utilizing municipal and government facilities. Those should be used and made available for CETs. I know that you talk about churches, but churches, they ask for rental from CET, which puts more strain on the CET sector. Also, Chair, from my observation, there's also a tendency to set targets that are unattainable because of the lack of sufficient funds or even lack of through thought. For instance, the target for CET enrollment should go from 142,000 to 266,000 in 2022 and 2023. And that makes no sense when the CET has no accommodation facility. It is very unfair for officials to be expected to meet such goals where there's no budget that speaks to those targets.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. We'll now proceed to Honorable Mananiso from the ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. Let me start by actually welcoming the speech from the Deputy Minister and the Minister, and as well from the Whip Tibunelo and Honorable Litsie. And one must say that I was covered on most of the issues with regard to them speaking about facts, not hearsays. And I would like to start by actually addressing some members. Honorable King, I want to indicate to you that the minister doesn't contradict himself. Instead, the minister speaks about the commitment that we have as an ANC, and we're still committed to that, of fee-free higher institutions. Honorable King, as you have just spoken, I just want to reprimand you as a member of this parliament that at times when you speak up for yourself on issues of internships. For those who haven't got any opportunities as young people, that internship that you are seeing as nothing, for them it's something. So we must not come here and grandstand as members of parliament, but give hope to our people out there. Honorable Chirwa, I want to welcome you in this particular portfolio committee, and I'm happy that now we will be able to assist us to move forward from the side of the EFF. I just want to say to you, forward whatever that you have as a concern with regards to the state on technicons that you have seen or facilities with regard to the beds and everything, so that we can go and do oversight as a portfolio committee. We are hard at work. I believe that yesterday you have seen that those issues that we have raised is things that we are raising, that it cannot be promoted, that our people becomes victim while they have to be beneficiaries. Honorable Sheikh Mama and Honorable Ganzo and other member who have just participated here, and we have never seen you in the portfolio committee. I just want to ask you that at some time you must just come and show your people that you are interested in higher education institutions and come and deliberate on these issues in our portfolio committee, so that you help us to move forward. Because what I believe is that the bar is high. Things are no longer the same like before. Honorable Chair, let me start by going to my speech. As the ANC, we want to acknowledge the members of the Portfolio Committee for their participation, cooperation, and articulation in dealing with national issues as a collective in the Portfolio Committee. Whatever that they are displaying here, it's something that is new, but in our Portfolio Committee, we are a collective that actually engage in robustness. And we congratulate those who have recently graduated and wish them well and all the best to them. I believe all of us, we have actually recognized and we have actually seen when our people were excited, whatever that the minister has just indicated here, it is the true realities of what we know of a Black child mostly, that in each and every family house today, things have changed. There's a paradigm shift. We've got graduates and we want to really congratulate them and we wish them well that they will be incorporated in our government program like your YES program of the President Office. Honorable Chair, one of the things that we would want to say as the Portfolio Committee is to say to the students who are affected by the unaccreditation from University of Walter Sisulu, not in our time that such must happen in our sector. And we reprimand everybody involved that they must not do it in our time. People must be held accountable and appropriate entities are addressing this matter. Just yesterday, we were just been given update in terms of what is it that is being doing by chair and people involved in the university. Let me hasten to indicate that the African National Congress supports Budget Vote 17 on higher education and training. This is the budget that will enable Department of Higher Education and Training to implement its policies and programs towards achieving the targets as set out in the medium-term strategic framework 2019-2024, the strategic plan and 2022-2023 annual plan. Despite the pressure on our fiscus, we welcome the consideration by our government to ensure that education remains an apex priority. This is the budget that will go towards expanding access to education and training by supporting access of students to community education training and technical vocational education training colleges. The budget supports universities, skills development offered by the SETAs, learnerships, apprenticeships, internship, and work-based placement. This is the budget that will go towards building a demographically representative higher education sector that provides students and staff with opportunity for access and success with the PSET sector. One of the members just alluded that we need to bring everybody along. So in this particular budget, we are agreeing on that on the basis that people who are in the peri-urbans will be accommodated and get these opportunities. This is the budget that will ensure everyone right for further education, which the state, through reasonable measures, must make progressively available and accessible as enshrined in the Constitution of our Republic. We welcome the additional budget allocation to the South African Authority to ensure that it can retain the current staff and implement the digitization and automation processes. On this one, honorable members, you would know in other areas, people are retrenched and not being taken back. But because we are a caring government, people will be hired at SAQA, those who have worked before. We are pleased that the entity is financially sustainable in the short term. We also urge department working with Treasury to find a sustainable solution to funding challenges of the entity in order to protect our national qualification framework, which is one of the best in the world. On issues of transformation, the focus of my debate is on transformation of the higher education landscape. Honorable Chair and members, Section 9.1 states that everyone is equal before the law and has the right to equal protection and benefit of the law. Section 9.3 further states that the state may not unfairly discriminate directly or indirectly against anyone or more grounds, including race, sex, pregnancy, marital status, gender, ethnic or social origin, color, sexual orientation, age, disability, religion, conscience, belief, culture, language, and birth. Furthermore, the Education White Paper 3 of 1997 envisioned a higher education system that would promote equity of access, a fair chances of success to all who are seeking to realize that their potential through higher education, while eradicating all forms of unfair discrimination and advancing redress for the past inequalities. The Honorable Minister have indicated that this is the only department that can accommodate 35 plus years people, and it is happening. And we know that we've got beneficiaries from the SETAs, TVET, who are 35 and above, and in those who are in universities. The new white paper for post-education and training also places emphasis on the vision of post-school education and training sector that is fair, equitable, non-racial, and non-sexist. The higher education sector has a huge role to play in contributing towards equitable South Africa, where opportunities are equally available. Implementing programs to redress the past imbalances within the sector will contribute immensely to the just society, given that the product of the institution will have better work opportunities. We therefore need to ensure that every effort is invested in developing and implementing transformative policies and programs within the sector, patriarchy, race, sex, orientation, and disability. To name but a few, should not dictate our access to opportunities. We call upon the Minister, the Department, and the Council members of our institution to ensure that senior management positions reflect the demographics of our country. We are dismayed that our institutions continue to protect themselves as reserves of a particular race, harbor racism. As the committee, we held several engagements with the Commission of Gender Equality, presenting its investigation reports on gender transformation at universities. The picture does not look good. As much as we have more women than men in the higher education sector among staff and students, the observation are that senior executive positions are still dominated by men. Most institutions do not meet the percentage of people with disability. We call upon the department to ensure that they do comply with the policy of people with disability. On issues of gender-based violence, Honorable Chairperson, we cannot expect women, people with disability, and the LGBTIQA+ society to succeed in education when they study in fear and not knowing whether if they go to a library at night, they may reach there or not. We note the efforts by the department to confront the scourge of GBVF head on. In 2020, the department published a policy framework to address GBV and F in the PSET sector. We welcome the funding allocation to higher health for 2022-2023 amounts 20.6 million rands. We also applaud the department for reprioritizing funding for higher health to support the fight against gender-based violence and femicide. Honorable Chair, issues of articulation, we note that there's a progress made towards implementing the articulation policy to ensure a proper exit level to TVET colleges, graduate in articulating to universities. Much still needs to be done. Indeed, in the current financial year, the department working with quality assurance bodies, Council, Higher Education, Quality Council for Trades and Occupation, and SAQA will produce a policy brief on articulation and articulation model for programs, articulation of TVET college programs into universities. I want to speak to our young people who are in the TVET colleges. Now we are ready as a country to discuss how or their exit point to universities. So Basafela Pilu, we still say that TVET, they must be their institution of choice for higher learning institution. 6 universities will be supported to develop TVET colleges articulation implementation plans. This should be applauded. As the committee, we will on quarterly basis monitor that all targets set on articulation are achieved. Honorable Chair, allow me to speak as well on the achievement for development goals set by our government. We need to ensure that our institutions of higher learning play a central role. The dawn of COVID-19 pandemic has showed us that we need scientific knowledge from our institution and scientists to help address the societal challenges that we are faced with. Honorable Chairperson, our Constitution protects academic freedom of institution. While we also protect it, we should, however, make sure that by the institution, what the institution actually contribute to the National Development Plan agenda. There should be accountability. As the committee, we have convened an institutional autonomy colloquium at the end of March to engage on these issues. Honorable Chair, as I conclude, I want to say that people who want to follow through in terms of the work that we are doing, they must just go to the website of Parliamentary Monitoring Group so that they can check that we are government at work and we are committed to ensure that we create a better life for all. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mananiso. Honorable members, I now call the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Let me start by thanking our ANC A-team, Honorable Mahlatsi, Letsie, and Mananiso, for clearly articulating the vision and the concrete things that this ANC-led government is doing. Honorable Mahlatsi, I do agree with you about calling more in terms of ensuring that we affirm women. And by the way, very proud to say that 60% of our university students are women. 59% of our Tibet College students are women. And 69% in our community education and training are women. So we are indeed making progress. By the way, I must just say, we have not been forced to change the status of Afrikaans. Afrikaans has always had its status, like all other languages, as contained in the Constitution of the Republic. I also would like to emphasize that the points that our Deputy Minister have made on gender-based, our fight against gender-based violence are very important, and they have addressed whatever other members may have raised here. Also, I do want to say, by the way, that we have an agreement with our universities in particular that students who complete and they are still owing, they must be given their results so that they can use those results to actually get employment and access other opportunities. That is the agreement we have with universities South Africa. So this thing that students do not get their results if they are owing, I don't know where Honorable Member Chirwa stays, not definitely in this country. I would also like to thank and acknowledge, and also, by the way, before that, I should point out that the strike at Moteo was for 3 days and it's over and the students are writing. So everything is continuing. Again, someone who is claiming something else really lives in cloud nine. I'm sorry to say that. Thanks to Honorable Ngobo Mapoloba for acknowledging progress and supporting our budget. We appreciate that. And Honorable Letsie, thanks for further acknowledging progress we are making even on student accommodation for Tibet College students. Honorable Sheikh Imam, thank you once more to you as well for the support that you have actually given us for this budget. I do want to assure you, by the way, that we work very closely with the Department of Basic Education to align, as I mentioned in my speech, on areas of improving the science and mathematics teaching, and output and training. We are responsible for all of teacher training, by the way, including for the schooling system. So we work very closely. Yes, of course, we admit a lot more still needs to be done. Also, Honorable Jafta of the AIC, thanks for your support. We agree with you that we have to align our curricula, our post-school education and training system to the needs of the fourth industrial revolution. But not only align, we also want to produce students who will contribute to new technologies, because we are quite capable of doing that as South Africa, as we have shown with our prowess, for instance, of our scientists in dealing with the COVID-19. Honorable Nyoso, Africa, for actually supporting this budget. we really want to appreciate all what we have actually said. To Honorable Makesi, I want to say that much as we acknowledge progress, but we have challenges, but we have made a lot of progress. Take TVET colleges that we are talking about. Firstly, they are full to capacity. It's just that we don't have extra money to expand them. If we double them tomorrow, I can tell you we'll have doubled the registration that we have. We are also, as Honorable Letsie was saying, expanding student accommodation to TVET college students. I was the minister in 2010 who introduced NSFAS into TVET college system. There was no NSFAS before that. These are all important achievements. That is why students are being attracted. We have centers of specialization that are working closely with industry in order to improve the output and knowledge and the quality of education in our TVET colleges. Injalo-ke njengani zakwethu, lo hulumeni ohola ukhongolose uyaqhuba idingo zabantu siyazazi, siyabonga kakhulu.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, you are reminded that the debate on agriculture, land reform and rural development budget vote, Office of the Chief Justice budget vote, and the Public Service and Administration, National School of Governance, and Public Service Commission budget vote will take place at 16:30 on the virtual platform. That concludes the debate and the business of this virtual mini plenary session. The mini plenary will now rise. Thank you.
Long live the chair.
Long live the chair.